46.8%. That's not just a number. That's domination. That's the shooting percentage that turned Lexie Hull from Caitlin Clark's supporting cast into the most dangerous weapon the WNBA didn't see coming. While everyone was busy creating conspiracy theories about Clark's absence, Hull quietly became a monster. And what she did next changed everything. I'm Jackson Riley, and I've been connecting the dots on what really happened when the WNBA's biggest star went down. Because this isn't just about one player getting injured. This is about how a groin injury on July 15th accidentally created the league's next superstar, triggered a media explosion worth $207 million, and exposed the real power dynamics that nobody wants to talk about. Here's what they missed while chasing fake resignation stories. And trust me, the truth is way more interesting than the manufactured drama flooding your timeline. So, let's start with what we know for certain. July 15, 2025. Caitlin Clark sustains a right groin injury during what should have been a routine game. Now, if you've been following the digital breadcrumbs like I have, you know groin injuries are tricky territory in professional basketball. We're talking about the muscle group that controls hip flexion, lateral movement, everything that makes a basketball player explosive on the court. The Indiana Fever immediately puts her on a cautious recovery timeline. Smart move. Rush back from a groin injury, and you're looking at months instead of weeks on the sideline. But here's where the story gets interesting, and it's an angle the other channels completely missed while they were busy manufacturing conspiracies. The WNBA All-Star Three-Point Contest is coming up, and Clark was supposed to be the marquee attraction, the rookie sensation, the ratings magnet, the one name casual fans would tune in to watch. Suddenly, they need a replacement. And that's when something fascinating happened that changed the entire trajectory of women's basketball. Enter Lexie Hull. Now, if you've been filtering out the noise like I have, you already know Hull wasn't just some random substitution. The woman was quietly building a case for herself all season long. We're talking about the fourth best three-point percentage in the entire league, 46.8% from beyond the arc. Let me put that in perspective for you. Stephen Curry's career three-point percentage, 42.6%. Damian Lillard, 37.1%. We're looking at elite territory here. But the temperature of the online conversation completely missed this angle. Everyone was so focused on Clark drama, conspiracy theories, and manufactured outrage that they slept on the real story unfolding right in front of them. Hull was becoming a legitimate star, and it was happening in plain sight. The moment Hull stepped into that all-star spotlight, everything shifted. This wasn't charity. This wasn't a sympathy replacement. This was a legitimate basketball player seizing her moment and proving she belonged on that stage. The clips started circulating immediately. The shooting form, the confidence, the way she carried herself under pressure. Social media lit up, but not with conspiracy theories this time, with genuine basketball appreciation. And that's when the signals started pointing to something bigger happening here. Because while Hull was making her statement in the All-Star contest, the broader WNBA was experiencing something unprecedented. According to verified data that I've been analyzing, the league saw a 52% engagement growth during this exact period. We're talking about $207 million in earned media value. Think about that for a second. The controversy, the drama, even the manufactured conspiracy theories were accidentally driving massive attention to women's basketball. But here's what the other channels won't tell you. Hull's emergence wasn't happening in isolation. This was part of a larger shift in how the WNBA was being perceived and consumed. And it had very little to do with fake resignation stories. Let me break down what was really happening behind the scenes while everyone was chasing fake storylines. The business intelligence here is absolutely fascinating, and it reveals something about the modern WNBA that completely contradicts the narrative that they can't survive without their biggest stars. Clark's absence could have been devastating for ratings and engagement. The biggest rookie star in WNBA history, suddenly sidelined for what's now been 17 consecutive games as of August 5th. By all logic, that should have created a massive drop in interest. Instead, it did the complete opposite. Hull's rise became part of a narrative about depth, about the next generation of talent, about the league being bigger than any single player. The 46.8% shooting percentage wasn't just a stat. It was proof that the WNBA had legitimate stars waiting in the wings, ready to step up when opportunities presented themselves. But the story doesn't end there, because while Hull was establishing herself as a legitimate threat, another teammate was making headlines for completely different reasons. And this is where the real power dynamics start to reveal themselves. Sophie Cunningham stepped up during this period in a way that created its own controversy. She launched a podcast called Show Me Something, specifically defending Clark. And she didn't hold back. She called Clark critics dumb as F***y on air. Direct quote. No filter, no corporate speak, just raw, unfiltered teammate loyalty. The WNBA's response? A $1,500 fine. Now, officially, the fine was for referee criticism. But if you follow the digital breadcrumbs, a different picture emerges. Cunningham had already been fined $500 earlier in the season for a TikTok video mocking officials. This wasn't isolated. This was a pattern of player advocacy running up against league control mechanisms. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because Cunningham's advocacy and Hull's emergence were happening simultaneously, creating this fascinating dynamic where Clark's injury was actually strengthening team chemistry and player empowerment rather than weakening it. Reading the signals from multiple sources, including verified reports and social media analysis, the relationship between Hull and Clark during this period has been nothing but supportive. These aren't rivals competing for spotlight. These are teammates who understand that Hull's success makes Clark's eventual return even more dangerous for opponents. Think about it from a strategic perspective. Clark comes back in mid-August, as currently projected, to a team where Hull has established herself as a legitimate three-point threat, shooting nearly 47% from beyond the arc. Defenses that used to focus exclusively on stopping Clark now have to account for a monster shooter operating at elite efficiency. That's not just a roster upgrade. That's a fundamental shift in how opponents have to approach the Indiana Fever. You can't double-team Clark anymore without leaving Hull open for three. You can't focus on one threat when there are now multiple elite weapons on the floor. But the narrative temperature mapping I've been conducting suggests there's an even bigger story here about what Hull's emergence means for the future of women's basketball. And it connects to broader trends that most content creators are completely missing. The online chatter around Hull's performance has been fascinating to track. TikTok content featuring her highlights has been generating millions of views. The YTI hashtag analytics show sustained engagement rather than just viral spikes. We're not talking about flash-in-the-pan attention. We're talking about legitimate star building happening in real time. And this is happening while the WNBA is experiencing unprecedented growth in other metrics too. The "Pay Us What You Owe Us" shirts worn by players at the All-Star Game weren't just fashion statements. They were part of ongoing CBA negotiations that are reshaping the entire economic structure of women's professional basketball. Hull's rise is happening during this period of massive institutional change. Her success isn't just individual achievement. It's part of a broader shift in how the league operates, how players advocate for themselves, and how fans engage with women's sports. The timing couldn't be more perfect. But here's where the timeline gets really intriguing, because all of this is building toward Clark's return, currently projected for around August 12th. And when that happens, the WNBA will have a completely different landscape than when she left. Instead of returning to a team that struggled without her, Clark will be joining a squad where Hull has proven she can operate at all-star levels. The supporting cast isn't just maintaining anymore. They're excelling, they're growing, they're becoming legitimate threats in their own right. So, what's fact and what's speculation? Let me break it down the way you won't get anywhere else. Fact: Hull is shooting 46.8% from three, fourth best in the league. Fact: she replaced Clark in the All-Star three-point contest due to injury, not politics. Fact: the WNBA experienced 52% engagement growth and $207 million in earned media value during this period. Fact: Cunningham received a $1,500 fine for her advocacy work. Now let's get into rumor territory. Nothing is officially confirmed, but the online chatter is too loud to ignore, and I've been filtering through the noise to find the signals that matter. The temperature of the online conversation suggests that Hull's emergence has caught opposing teams completely off guard. Scouts who were preparing exclusively for Clark's return are now having to completely revise their defensive schemes. One particularly interesting piece of speculation floating around coaching circles suggests that Hull's shooting efficiency is actually benefiting from reduced defensive attention, but her consistency suggests this isn't just a hot streak. Official sources won't tell you this, but if you follow the digital breadcrumbs, a different picture emerges about how Hull is being perceived within league circles. Multiple coaches have reportedly started calling her the real deal in private conversations. The whispers suggest her all-star performance wasn't beginner's luck. It was a coming-out party. I've been filtering through the noise around what happens when Clark returns, and the signals point to something unprecedented in WNBA history. We're potentially looking at the first rookie class where the marquee player's absence actually strengthened their team's championship prospects. Hull isn't just keeping the seat warm for Clark, she's completely redefining what that seat looks like. When Clark comes back, she's not going to be returning to the same role she left. She's going to be joining a more dangerous, more balanced, more threatening offensive system. The business implications here are staggering. Sponsors who invested in Clark's star power are now getting unexpected value from Hull's emergence. Jersey sales data, while not officially released, shows significant movement in Hull merchandise. Arena attendance in markets where the fever play has remained surprisingly strong despite Clark's absence. This is what modern sports marketing looks like when executed correctly. One star goes down, another emerges, and the overall brand actually gets stronger. The institutional health of the league gets proven through adversity rather than crumbling under pressure. But that brings us to the inevitable question that everyone's been asking. What happens to this dynamic when Clark comes back? How do you manage two legitimate stars on the same team? How do you distribute touches, opportunities, and spotlight? The smart money says we're looking at the most dangerous backcourt combination in recent WNBA history. Clark's vision and playmaking ability combined with Hull's elite shooting efficiency. Defenses will literally have no good options. Cover. Clark too aggressively, and Hull burns you from three. Focus on Hull's shooting, and Clark creates easy opportunities for everyone else. But the deeper narrative here is about what Hull's emergence represents for women's basketball as a whole. This isn't just about one player having a good stretch. This is about the depth of talent in the modern WNBA. The league is strong enough that losing its biggest star doesn't derail entire franchises anymore. That's institutional strength. That's sustainable growth. That's the kind of foundation that turns a growing league into a permanent fixture in American sports culture. And Hull's 46.8% shooting percentage is the proof of concept. Reading the room across multiple platforms, the consensus seems to be that Hull's performance has shifted conversations away from "Can the WNBA survive without its stars?" to "How many legitimate stars does this league actually have?" That's a much better problem to have. That's the kind of problem that indicates a healthy, growing, sustainable sports ecosystem. When your backup plans become your success stories, you know you're building something special. The Reddit conversations I've been tracking show a fascinating shift in how fans discuss women's basketball. Instead of focusing exclusively on individual star power, there's more appreciation for system basketball, team chemistry, and depth. Hull's emergence is part of that broader cultural shift. TikTok trends around her highlights focus on her shooting, mechanics, her court awareness, her basketball IQ. This isn't celebrity worship. This is genuine basketball appreciation from fans who understand what they're watching and want to engage with authentic excellence. Now, here's where the story connects to broader WNBA politics that everyone's been missing while chasing manufactured drama. Hull's emergence is happening during active CBA negotiations, player empowerment movements, officiating controversies. The league is literally reshaping itself while Hull is establishing herself as a legitimate star. Her success becomes part of the argument for better player compensation. When you can shoot 46.8% from three at the professional level, you have leverage in contract negotiations. When you can seamlessly replace the league's biggest star in marquee events, you deserve recognition and compensation that matches your value. The timing isn't coincidental. Player advocacy and player performance are working together to drive real change in how women's professional basketball operates. Sophie Cunningham's $1,500 fine isn't just about referee criticism. It's about the league trying to maintain control over player voices while those players are simultaneously proving their worth through performance. Hull's shooting, Cunningham's advocacy, Clark's anticipated return. It's all connected in ways that the manufactured controversy content completely misses. The next 2 weeks are going to be absolutely critical for how this story develops. Clark's return is projected around August 12th, which means we're potentially looking at the most anticipated comeback in recent WNBA history. But it's not just about Clark anymore. Hull has made sure of that. When Clark steps back onto the court, she'll be joining a team where her supporting cast has proven they don't need her to succeed. That's not diminishing Clark's importance. That's elevating everyone around her. That's creating a championship-caliber situation where multiple players can take over games. Hull shooting 46.8% from three changes everything about how opponents defend the Fever. They can't just focus on stopping Clark anymore. They have to account for legitimate threats across multiple positions. They have to respect Hull's range, which opens up driving lanes for Clark. They have to defend deeper on the perimeter, which creates post-up opportunities for other players. That's championship-level depth. That's what sustainable success looks like in professional basketball. And it's happening because Hull seized her opportunity rather than just surviving it. But here's what makes this story even more fascinating from a cultural perspective. Hull's emergence is happening while the broader sports media landscape is fragmenting between manufactured controversy and authentic analysis. Channels that focus on fake drama and conspiracy theories are missing the real stories. Meanwhile, the audience for intelligent basketball analysis is growing rapidly. The 52% engagement growth isn't just about controversy. It's about fans who want deeper understanding of what they're watching. Hull's statistical dominance rewards that kind of engaged viewership. You can't appreciate a 46.8% three-point percentage without understanding what that number means in context. You can't value her all-star replacement performance without recognizing the pressure and expectations she was facing. This is sophisticated sports consumption. This is an audience that deserves better than manufactured outrage. And Hull's performance gives us something authentic to celebrate instead of fake drama to argue about. The online conversation around Hull has been fascinating to track because it's largely driven by basketball purists rather than casual drama seekers. Reddit threads dissecting her shooting mechanics, TikTok breakdowns of her footwork and release point, YouTube analysis comparing her efficiency to historical benchmarks. This is what authentic sports fandom looks like when it finds legitimate excellence to celebrate. No conspiracy theories needed. No manufactured controversy required. Just pure basketball appreciation for someone operating at elite levels. So, where do we go from here? The trajectory seems clear, and it's more exciting than any fake drama the competition is pushing. Clark returns in mid-August to a completely transformed team dynamic. Hull has established herself as a legitimate star-level talent shooting nearly 47% from three. Cunningham continues advocating for player rights despite league fines. The broader WNBA continues its unprecedented growth during what should have been a down period. But the most important development might be how this entire sequence has demonstrated the league's depth and resilience. Losing your biggest star for 17-plus games should be catastrophic. Instead, it became an opportunity for other talents to emerge, and for the overall product to get stronger. That's not luck. That's institutional health. That's what happens when you have legitimate depth, rather than just star power surrounded by role players. Hull's 46.8% shooting isn't just impressive individual performance. It's proof that the WNBA has moved beyond dependence on any single player, no matter how talented or popular. When Clark comes back, she'll be joining a league that proved it doesn't need her to thrive. That doesn't diminish her importance. It elevates her return into something even more special. The monster that Clark's injury created isn't just Lexie Hull's shooting percentage. It's the realization that women's basketball has reached a level of depth and quality that can survive and thrive through adversity. It's the discovery that the next generation of stars isn't coming someday. They're already here. Hull averaged over 2 made threes per game, while shooting nearly 47% from beyond the arc during Clark's absence. Those aren't developmental numbers. Those aren't potential statistics. Those are all-star production levels, from a player who wasn't even the primary focus of opposing defenses. Imagine what happens when she gets to operate alongside Clark's playmaking and draw secondary defensive attention instead of primary coverage. Imagine what happens when opposing teams have to choose between stopping Clark's drives or contest Hull's threes. That brings us to the final piece of this puzzle that everyone's been missing. The business implications of Hull's emergence extend far beyond basketball, and they connect to the broader growth story that's reshaping women's professional sports. Sponsors who invested in the WNBA based on Clark's star power are now getting unexpected return on investment through Hull's development. Media companies that signed broadcast deals expecting Clark-driven ratings are discovering they have multiple legitimate stars to build content around. The league's value proposition has fundamentally changed during this 17-game stretch. Instead of selling one transcendent talent, they're now selling institutional depth and emerging star power across multiple franchises. Hull's emergence proves the WNBA isn't just the Caitlin Clark show. It's a legitimate basketball league with multiple compelling storylines. Hull shooting 46.8% from 3, while Cunningham advocates fearlessly for better officiating, while Clark recovers properly from injury. That's not just good basketball. That's good business. That's sustainable growth built on multiple pillars rather than single-player dependence. The $207 million in earned media value during this period wasn't accidental. It was the result of multiple compelling storylines converging at the right moment. Hull's emergence, Clark's anticipated return, player advocacy movements, CBA negotiations, all of it happening while the league experiences its most significant growth period in history. What Lexie Hull accomplished during Caitlin, Clark's absence will be remembered as a turning point, not just for her career, not just for the Indiana Fever, but for how we understand the current state and future potential of women's professional basketball. 8% from 3, 4th best in the league, all-star replacement, seamless integration, team chemistry, championship implications. These aren't just individual achievements. They're proof of concept for the entire WNBA ecosystem. And when Clark returns around August 12th, the WNBA will have something it's never had before: a rookie class where the marquee player's temporary absence actually made their team more dangerous. Hull didn't just fill Clark's spot in the All-Star contest. She created her own space in the conversation about the league's elite talents. That's what monsters do. They don't just survive in new environments. They dominate them. They change the entire ecosystem around them. The injury that sidelined Caitlin Clark accidentally unleashed something the WNBA didn't know it had. Proof that the next generation of stars is already here, already ready, and already performing at championship levels. Lexie Hull shooting 46.8% from 3 isn't just a statistic. It's a declaration. It's proof that women's basketball has depth that extends far beyond any single player, no matter how talented or popular. The monster is real. The monster is here. And the monster is just getting started.